Civil services is too big a thing, too mature a thing, expectations are there. So you should actually complete your post-graduation, do a few things here and there, get that level of maturity and understanding, and only then come to the civil services. Sir, I think May I come in, sir? Yes, please do. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Please take your seat. Thank you, sir. You are Mr. Satyam. Yes. Satyam Gandhi. Yes. Satyam, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that you are sitting at around 12-13 feet from anybody in this room, right? Yes. You are at a safe distance. Yes. We have kept this arrangement to ensure that you feel safe and you can safely remove your mask considering that you are at a safe distance, right? Please do. Thank you, sir. So, Satyam, comfortable? Yes, sir. Satyam, I would like to inform my fellow board members that Satyam is basically from Samastipur, Bihar. Yes, sir. I can also see that Satyam has done his graduation from University of Delhi in 2020, yes, right? It was BA Honours in Political Science. Is there any other information you would like to share with the board? Sir, I completed all my schoolings from Kendriya Vidyalaya Arutusa in Bihar itself, and then I moved for the graduation in DU. And from the last year, I am preparing for civil services. I have done few internships during my college days and also worked as a freelancer. So, Satyam, I can see that you are barely eligible right now, right? You are around 21 years old. You completed your 21 years last month yes. Only. Considering that, I mean, I understand that you are eligible and that's why you're here. Yes. But if you leave the eligibility part things apart, don't you think that you're too young? You're too immature right now. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying it as a matter of disrespect. Everybody at your age is likely to be you only. But don't you think that civil services is too big a thing, too mature a thing? Expectations are there. So you should actually complete your post graduation, do a few things here and there, get that level of maturity and understand.
भाई मैं बुग्गा था बैठ जाग बस उठा के नहीं बस मोबाइल वाली
And only then come to the civil services. Sir, I think today's civil services need energetic and enthusiastic person, which I believe I am. And from the starting, I had in mind that I have to do civil services only, and I have certain ambitions and goals in my life which I would like to implement in future. That is why I have started early, and I wish to join the civil services very early. That is even more worrisome for me, which effectively means that you're a person who were too focused, polarized in your upbringing, that you, even at the age of 21, you're saying that you're doing it for a very long period of time, you've been too focused into it, which effectively means that you're a very polarized person, and that's why probably more maturity is required. What's your take? Sir, I think from the past 2 years, I have done my UPSC preparation, and earlier I had done extracurricular activities in my college, and also I have done certain photography, filmmaking, and various other things which are not in the syllabus or which are not part of UPSC syllabus per se. And furthermore, I think that since I just completed 21 years of age, so I am more enthusiastic person than others, and I think I can better contribute in the development of my nation. Let us not dispute that you're young and energetic, though it is not necessarily a domain of the age. But still, do you believe there are a couple of things? There can be a couple of things which you lack because of your young age. Not really some kind of a criticism, but can you figure out 3 things in your personality which you believe that you will get only with time? Sir, I do not see any problem right now. But let us not talk about problem. Let us believe that I'm looking at your ability to analyze your personality. When can you see that there are 3 problems in your personality? Because there are 3 things you will be achieving only with the maturity, with the age. Sorry, sir, I do not see anything. So one is that you don't have the ability to analyze yourself. Can you mention 2 more? When you just explained that you cannot analyze your personality, this is one problem. What are 2 other problems? Sorry, sir, I would beg to differ with you. I can better analyze my personality. Analyze and tell me 3 things. Sir, I have analyzed, but when I told you, give me 2 more. Sir, I think that I have analyzed my personality and I do not find any such discrepancies into me. And even if there is, I think by the time I complete my training, I will be mature enough to deal with all the circumstances. Okay, let's accept what you're saying. You have mentioned that you cleared your ND examination, yes, but you did not join. Sir, I am colorblind, so that is why I was not found medically fit to join the academy. But you mentioned police services in your options. If you're colorblind, why have you filled many police services here? Sir, there are 5 levels of colorblindness, and I am currently at CP4, and I am not aware of the level of colorblindness that IPS requires. So I will see what happens in the medical, and it will decide my fate. You got yourself medically examined in the UPSC earlier, and still you're not aware that what is the status of your again immaturity then? Sir, I think I am aware of my status as per the requirements of armed forces, that is Air Force, Army and Navy, but I am not aware of the status as per, but it's there, yes, it's there in the notification that is given to you. You didn't read the notification? Sir, I have read the notification, but the level of colorblindness is not mentioned there. It is only written colorblindness. Okay. Tell me, you have also mentioned that you like street photography. Yes, sir. If you're in a street and you have an object in mind, it is very difficult to take consent from the object.
before the photography. How do you manage that?
Sir, I think a street is a public space and it belongs as much to them as much to me. So,
Street in its physical form is a public space, but the individuals you are photographing, are they also public objects?
sir, they are not, but whenever I click the photo, after that I ask for a consent that if I can use this photo for my purpose or not. And if the object, I delete the photo.
Fine, thank you, sir. So, gentlemen, you have taken political science as your optional.
Yes, sir.
There's a topic we consider a regional international organization. We are living in an age of globalization, right? And our global political platform, social economic platform, very popularly called UN, WTO, and some other organization too. You consider the regional organization, either it is what continental organization like European Union, African Union, or regional organization like ASEAN, SAARC. They're responsible behind first failure of all such global organizations because their actually purpose to work is quite different. What's your opinion?
Sir, from the past 30 years, neoliberal globalization has taken shape and that has given emergence to many multilateral and regional organizations, as you mentioned. But I think that these organizations, particularly the continental and regional ones such as EU or SCO, have some specific objectives which are related to the regional development. And if we talk about the global,
sorry to interrupt you, whatever the perspective of European Union, that is not applicable on third world. Third world, that is African Union, they have a different perspective. And there's a sense of what? Regional bias. The sense of regionalism, and finally that is going to translate into what? Racism, so-called paternity theory, superior inferior. So this is the what perception prevail across the world, particularly we call it what North-South divide. Yes, please.
Sir, I think that European Union was formed with a view to develop European continental, and since European continental and African continental have different priorities and different objectives, so these two organizations were created. And if we talk about the current situation, then all these organizations are cooperating on different level.
They're not cooperating. Look, Afghanistan. All regional organization or individual nation having a different perspective. Nobody take care of women of what you look actually Afghanistan. The president of USA has quoted himself and a pray for women of what? Afghanistan. You are aware?
Yes, sir, I'm aware.
So what your stand now, please?
Sir, in the current times, I think it is pretty unfortunate that organizations are not focusing upon the situations in Afghanistan. But if we see the other larger issues, be it climate change or combating terrorism or funding human rights organizations.
Well, combating terrorism, day before yesterday, our foreign minister has again actually make a call to a country like USA. There's no bad and what? Good terrorism. This is the right time and rise awake and move till not the aim is achieved. So how you consider there's a one actually approach in actually what curbing terrorism. The last government of USA has not accepted climate justice or a different approach. So there is no what actually unilateral or integrated approach to climate change. They are creating a regional divide. So what I want to know from you is what should be the best way for globalization?
So the best way to globalization would be to keep humanity in mind, because humanity is the only factor which unites all the countries. And if we focus on humanity, then all the nations will automatically come together to combat the challenges which threaten the existence of humanity, that is climate change, terrorism, or human rights issues. I think that United Nations have to be more proactive to ensure that all the regional organizations have their voices heard there, and moreover, they have certain minimum agenda on which they agree to work, so that it will act as a low-hanging fruit, and then we can expect more to.
Okay, you coming from Samastipur.
Yes, sir.
This is the first republic of what world, right? At least for India, and it's a land of Buddhism and Jainism.
Yes, sir.
My question is what in our Constitution, Article 51, right? There are several provisions of international relations directly taken from what Buddhism and Jainism. Can you trace what actually things of 51 article has been taken or have been taken from Buddhism and Jainism as what the basic constituent of our international relation?
Sir, Article 51 deals with fundamental duties, and
51A.
51A.
This is 51. 51 is what international relation. 51A is what fundamental duties. That is a separate part also. 51A is a part.
So can am I allowed to take a guess?
Yes, please.
Sir, Article 51 deals with that India will act in a way that promotes international peace and prosperity. So this is what the crux of Article 51 is, and it directly belongs to Buddhism and Jainism because both religion felt that the humanity is one and there is no divide in present in there.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Satyam.
Yes, sir.
You belong to Bihar.
Yes.
And a very alluvial soil land that is Samastipur.
Yes, sir.
And in Samastipur earlier, it has a very big agricultural market, but now it is shrinking. Why the agricultural market of Samastipur is shrinking?
Sir, there are several reasons why it is happening. The first, with time, the land holdings are getting divided among the family members. So the productivity and total production is also declining. So there is not enough production that can help the agriculture market is functioning. So secondly, Bihar abolished APMC market act in 2006. So that is why the Bazaar Samiti that was present in Samastipur, now it has no relevance. And thirdly, now people are exporting or sending their produce to other parts of the India due to better connectivity and the Kisan Rail, which even goes through Samastipur. So that is why I think that these things are happening.
Samastipur is one of the largest supplier of vegetables to the NCR region. So is it the shifting of market
Yes, sir. Shifting of market is the reason, because as connectivity has increased, so farmers are getting now good avenues to market their produce. As you rightly mentioned, that is Delhi. So the relevance of Samastipur as an agricultural market is declining.
My next question. India's coastline is a very long coastline. How the geographical shape of coastline is helping the importance of India, particularly in the maritime region?
Sir, India is situated just above Indian Ocean, and
It is just above, or it is just north?
sorry, sir, just north the Indian Ocean, and it is a commanding position if we talk about geographically. So it has helped India to shape its major foreign policy priorities. If I take the example, India has initiated Sagar mission, that is security and growth for all in the region. It has assumed the net security provider role in the Indian Ocean region. It has many NSA level talk with Maldives, Sri Lanka, and Mauritius. And furthermore, India has also initiated humanitarian assistance and disaster relief measures around the Indian Ocean littoral region. And recently, India has established information fusion system in Gurgaon, so that the commercial ships can be managed effectively. And the last would be it is very helpful to counter the influence of China, particularly in the Indian Ocean region.
My next question, last question from you. Gandhi always advised the stateless society. Why?
Sir,
It is like a Taliban.
Sir, I would beg to differ with you, because when Taliban talks about a stateless society, they have some different priorities in mind. But when Gandhi talked about a stateless society, he took the humanitarian view of people. He viewed people as pacifists who can cooperate even in the absence of a state. And he viewed the state as a symbol of violence, which can prohibit human development. So Gandhi promoted a stateless society, or so-called Ram Rajya, in which people can ensure their own personality development and cooperate to achieve some human goals.
Is it the practical thing, a stateless society, the concept of a stateless society?
Sir, in my personal opinion, in today's world, a stateless society is not possible, because state is necessary to ensure that certain fundamental rights of every person is protected. But we are progressing towards a minimalist state, which goes more closer to the stateless society.
Thank you, Satyam. Thank you.
Satyam,
Yes, sir.
your name comprises Gandhi title.
Yes.
Do you find any similarity with Gandhiji or dissimilarity?
Sir, Gandhi title has a lot of impact in my life and has induced certain similarities into my personality. The first one is that Gandhi's talisman, that whenever I take any step, I remember the face of the poorest individual who will get the benefit. Secondly, Gandhi always talked about civic sense, sanitation, and following truthfulness. So this is the core principle on which my personality and my life is based. So thirdly, Gandhi always talked about non-violence and compassion towards other people, and it will help me in administration also. When
Any dissimilarity?
Sir, in the moral sense, I do not have any dissimilarity, but some of the Gandhian ideas which I do not agree with. There are some ideas which,
Like?
sir, I think the Gandhian economic model, he criticized mechanization, industrialization. I agree to him, I disagree with him a little bit, because in current times, I think that industrialization and mechanization are as much required as labor-intensive industries. So this is one point which I disagree with.
Okay. You have been associated with Dr. Ambedkar International Center.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Ambedkar and Gandhi were some ideological differences. Could you trace out those ideological differences on which basis they have?
So Dr. Ambedkar and Gandhi had several differences. The first one would be on the issue of caste. Sir,
Okay, one is caste.
so second is regarding a stateless society. Dr. Ambedkar always favored a constitutional state, rule of law, but Gandhi favored a stateless society. The third would be on the reservation issue. Dr. Ambedkar always supported separate electorate and reservation, but Gandhi was against it because it would divide country internally. And
According to what would be the right means separate electorate or reservation according to the Gandhiji?
sir, Gandhiji compromised for reservation.
Means what is your opinion? Suppose you have to choose one. Separate electorate or reservation?
Sir, I would prefer reservation.
Reservation.
Yes.
Okay. Watching science fiction films is your hobby. Why in India we don't see a good number of science fiction movies?
So there are a few reasons why we do not make such movies. The first would be the cost, because
Okay, one is cost.
so second would be the audience, because generally urban middle class educated people like science fiction films. But if we talk about Indian scenario, then most of the people like action, thriller, or fantasy movie.
Means you believe that Indians don't have that kind of scientific temper like in European countries and in United States.
Sir, I do not mean so, but we are still a developing nation, and scientific temper is also developing among us. So there are sizable number of people, particularly in urban areas, who are very scientifically active and love towards the science fiction films. But 70% of our population live in rural areas, and which are not developed if we talk about science fiction point of view. So
You mean to say in rural areas people don't have a scientific approach?
So they do have scientific approach, but the concepts that are associated with science fiction films, like black hole, wormhole, time travel, time dilation, slingshot maneuver, these concepts, people are not aware of these concepts. But it will. I am hopeful that after 20 or 30 years, we will produce a Hollywood-like quality films.
Hollywood-like quality.
Or even
Okay, you are from Bihar.
Yes.
If you talk about the recent Niti Aayog SDG index, Bihar is the worst performing state. Why is it so? Just point out your reasons only.
So there are a few reasons. The first would be historical. Permanent settlement system was most enforced in Bihar, and they deprived Bihar of all the investment that was needed for development. Secondly, in the post-independence era, there was much political instability in Bihar. For example, between 1960 to 2000, there were 27 chief ministers in Bihar. So that the development could not become the priority for political class.
Okay, last question from my side, Satyam. What India can learn from Bihar?
Sir, India can learn many things from Bihar. The first would be the idea of democracy and republicanism that was first present in Bihar, and how we should move towards a more participative society. So second would be the humbleness, because many people say that Bihari people are more humble and more hardworking to achieve their goals. So this would be another thing. And third would be the urge for the development. Bihar is a poor state, but still is doing much better than many other states, particularly in the past 20 years. So these things can be learned by the.
Thank you, Satyam. Thank you. Sir.
Satyam, you are a student of PSIR.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me the difference between communism and socialism?
So the major difference is that communism is a stateless society, but in the socialism there is a state which enforces the rule of law and other social redistributive mechanism. So second is according to Marx, socialism is the midway to communism, and it comprises of dictatorship of proletariat.
Okay, fine. Can you tell me the difference between a flow test and a composite flow test when both are used?
So flow test is just used to check whether the party has the majority, effective majority or not. But composite flow test comes into play when some alternate parties are ready to form government, and the legislatures have to vote for that party too. And if the ruling party loses majority, there is a party which is ready to form the government.
Right. And we often hear that Prime Minister is the first among the equals. Okay. And this phrase, first among equals, does it signify equality of status or inequality of status?
So can I take a guess?
Sure.
So when Constitution says that Prime Minister is first among the equals, it means that Prime Minister is also a member of cabinet, and that is why the other ministers and Prime Ministers are of the same hierarchy. But Prime Minister seems
Same hierarchy.
at the same level. I mean, Prime Minister commands the whole cabinet, but in the constitutional point of view, they are termed as equals.
So should we take it as equality or inequality?
So if we see practically, then Prime Minister is definitely not equal among us because he commands a major position in cabinet. But
Fine, leave it. Can you tell me the difference between a state and a nation?
so there are a few differences. The first, that a state is a political entity having limited or definitive territorial area and a population to command authority over. But nation is a cultural identity where people have shared history, shared culture, and have devotion towards
Can we have a situation of a state without a nation?
state without a nation. Yes, sir, it can have, because in today's world there are many multicultural societies which, if we go
But they're having multiple nations. I think I would put it like multiple nations in a state, but not a state without a nation.
sir, I
Are these
think
two things same?
so it depends upon the people whom they associate with. If they have the priority of their own local group in mind, then they have certain different association. But in India, if we talk like it is a multicultural society, and people have devotion to the Indian nation and not particularly
Okay, so then tell me what is China plus one model and why it has been in news. China plus one.
Sir, can you give any in which sense, sir?
Like after COVID-19, many countries wanted like their like they should not be dependent on only one country. So in that context, it is China plus one.
So if I'm not wrong, then it is regarding diversifying the supply chain, because in the globalization, countries have realized that relying upon one particular country is immensely dangerous, particularly if we importing critical technologies from that country. So we have taken, all the countries have taken certain steps to diversify their supply chain.
Fine. Recently, there was a case in which a documentary was made, and in that documentary, the voice of a person who is no longer alive, it was recreated using artificial intelligence and other technologies. Now, what do you think are the ethical issues in doing such a thing? Is it right or is it wrong? Are you aware about this documentary?
No, sir, I'm not aware of this documentary, but if we talk about ethically, if we are using that documentary for public purpose and for a good purpose, then it might give some benefits for us, provided that that documentary is not used for unethical purposes. So this is my point of view, sir.
Fine. My final question to you, how many Indians have gone to space, or people of Indian origin who have gone to space, and what is Carmen line?
So what is
Carmen line. Carmen.
Carmen Lie?
Yes.
Sorry, sir, I will have to look into what is Carmen Lie. But
How many Indians or people of Indian origin who have been to space?
so Sunita Williams, Rakesh Sharma, and recently on the Virgin Galactic flight, one female Indian went into space. So if, as far as I am aware, there are 3 people.
There's one more. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Okay, Satyam. Satyam, you're a political science student, and I'm sure you must have already studied gender. Tell me, when Simone said that women is not born, she is made, what is she trying to imply?
So she is trying to imply the difference between sex and gender, because when women, she said that women are not born, she is made. We have certain social and cultural stereotypes that we associate with women, particularly if we talk about that women should be the glory of household. So this is what she tried to imply, that we associate certain stereotypes with women which are not present at the time of the birth. So she said women are...
If you look at Indian society from the gender lens, we see whenever it comes to the real positions of power, for example, we have just one chief minister who's women, we do not have CGI women so far, and many other similar class ceiling things you'll observe. Do you believe that we should wait till the society changes and become a gender friendly society, or we should bring the changes and then let its impact be felt by the society, and society will change accordingly? What should be the best way of doing it?
So I think that society has progressed in the past 70 years, and in the recent Lok Sabha, there was the most number of female parliamentarians ever. So, but I think that government steps, civil society steps, and people will have to come forward to ensure that the society becomes more gender sensitive and give the rightful rights that are present for women.
Your name is Satyam. This beautiful line, Satyam Shivam from Sundaram, is taken from which scripture?
Sorry, sir, I can only guess, I'm not sure, sir.
How about Satyam Jayate?
Sir, Satyam Jayate is from a Upanishad, if I'm not
Which
wrong.
Upanishad is it?
Sorry, sir, I'm unable to recall, sir. I will have
No problem. It just came as a passing comment, not really most important. I can also see that you mentioned the video editing thing. Can you name a few open source video editing softwares?
Sir, I do not use open source, but I am familiar with some proprietary.
You don't use open source? This is strange for just a graduate student. Where do you get so much money from using proprietary softwares?
Sir,
Proprietary software starts from 1 lakh onwards. I mean, for a young student like you, it will be a big sum, isn't it?
Yes, sir, I agree with, yes, sir. But college generally provides those proprietary softwares for the students' use, and the society in which I was the vice president, they also had a proprietary source Adobe Premiere Pro given by the college, so I used that software.
So, apart from Adobe Premiere, what are other softwares generally used for video editing or still editing?
So there are like Adobe After Effects, and there is one more, Final Cut Pro. So these are the other softwares which are often used.
So, what is the concept of layers when it comes to the Premiere?
So layers can be defined as if I take an example of a normal photo, then there are foreground, background, and in between there are various layers. So we can cut a particular part of a photo and then superimpose it on other using the layer mechanism. So this is what
What are the shortcut commands for layer copy paste?
sorry sir, I'm not aware of shortcut. I use the visible symbols. So
Fine. Fine, Satya, it was nice talking to you. Your interview is over. You can go now.
thank you sir. Thank you sir.
Aye. Come, Satyam, take your seat.
Thanks sir.
So,
Are you vaccinated?
Yes sir.
We are also vaccinated. You can remove your mask so that we can have a meaningful interaction.
Thank you sir.
Introduce yourself to the board, highlighting your educational qualification and experience.
My name is Syed Mustafa Hashmi. I'm a surgeon. I've had my undergraduate and postgraduate education at Osmania Medical College, Hyderabad. My father is a civil engineer. My mother is MSc B.Ed, but she's a homemaker. I have 3 younger siblings, all of whom are into medicine, sir.
Mustafa, should I call you Mustafa?
Yes, sir.
Mustafa, that you are a qualified doctor, you did your graduation, you did your post-graduation, you are an MS, if I'm not mistaken. Society needs you. Such bright doctors is needed in society. Why do you want to waste your talent by joining the civil services and not to continue with your professional this thing?
Sir, I believe I'm putting my talent to best possible use by joining the civil services, sir. There is also a personal reason to this, sir. One of my earliest memories in life, when I was, I think, just 4 or 5 years old, is my grandfather, who was a government employee, telling me that an IS officer is a dream job and he wants me to become one. That remained in the seed for a long while till I joined my medicine. And through the end of my medicine study, during my internship, when I actually interacted with patients, and in my surgical training, some of my most satisfying moments were when I operate a patient and there's a huge smile on the face. But sir, this very smile, I saw it vanishing when the patients get discharged. On speaking to people over and over again on this, I realized that health is only one of the many deprivations that people face, sir. And I believe civil services offers me that opportunity to make a lasting, more deeper impact, and that is where I find my real calling to be, sir.
But you see, of course, you are very much passionate about joining the civil services. But of late, civil services have come for a lot of criticism for all the wrong reasons. And there is general perception that reforming Indian bureaucracy is a mission impossible. This is a perception, public perception. Still, you are so passionate about joining the service and be an agent of change. Is it possible?
Sir, I believe public perception is not the metric to judge any aspect, sir, because public perception can be far removed from what the reality is, sir. And I believe even in the 21st century, Sardar Patel's evocative phrase of calling the bureaucracy the steel frame still holds good, sir. And the way I see it, sir, a group of 6,000 odd IS officers catering to 1.3 billion population, and if I include all civil services, perhaps it is upwards of 10 or so lakhs of employees catering to the most populous soon-to-be country in the world. I believe that is a huge opportunity for not just leadership, but also creativity, innovation, which is needed to perhaps combat that perception, sir.
When you say that 6,000 or 7,000 odd IS officers are serving a huge country like India with a population of 1.2 or 4 billion, and you are happy with this, then why the government is contemplating toying with the idea or even implementing the lateral entry in the high echelons of administration in the country, at the level of the joint secretary, at the level of a director? Why there is a need for inducting people from the private sector when the government servants IS officers are doing so exceedingly well?
Sir, fundamentally, I believe that we have a 19th century bureaucratic structure addressing 21st century challenges, and this is bound to create some mismatch, sir. And we have incredible talent in the private sector as well, sir, which can be utilized for the country's upliftment, be it economically, socially, especially in the health sector as well. Some of the best entrepreneurs we have are in the health sector. As a doctor, I've seen the results that they can give, sir. So I believe lateral entry is a portal towards the same goal that the bureaucracy has, that is increasing the efficiency of governance, sir. So this gets in talent, which raises the overall standard of our services.
But don't you think there's a dichotomy or an irony in your statement? On the one hand, you said that Indian bureaucracy is a steel frame. It is not amenable to change. Politicians may come, may go, political masters may come, may go, but the bureaucrats will remain neutral. On the other hand, you are talking of 19th century rules, 21st century and all that, and then bringing in fresh talent from the private sector. It is not very convincing argument.
Sir, the steel itself is quite malleable, sir. By melting steel, we can create a new frame to address new challenges, sir. So I believe the institution of bureaucracy, in principle, is something indispensable to any democratic governance structure, sir. It is important to map the needs to the talent we have, sir. And on this front, both our recruitment process and also the lateral entry serves this very purpose of increasing the overall efficiency, sir.
Theoretically, it's also so good. But imagine a person, a career bureaucrat, who has joined the service at the young age of 25, 26, 27. After serving the country for a long period of 2 decades, suddenly finds a new man coming on a wild card and joining the service on a contract basis. How will you feel about it? What will happen to his self-esteem?
Sir, as a bureaucrat, we place national needs above our self-esteem, sir. So I believe any person in that position should be seeing it in a positive light, because every individual is working towards betterment of, say, the country's service delivery as a whole. And any addition to that, come at whatever cost, it should be good, sir. In this context, I believe that a civil servant is not there for his personal gain or raising his own stature or authority, sir. If that is so, if this is what a civil servant thinks, I believe he is misplaced in the job, sir.
That's what 20% feel. That's good. Okay. Imagine a scenario where instead of politicians getting elected by the people, they are also selected through a method like UPSC. And the country is run on the corporate lines, and the Prime Minister of the country works like a CEO of a company. Then what happens to the country?
Sir, the idea of a meritocracy, which is what the idea is essentially you're suggesting as, is sound in theory, sir. But in practice, at independence, it was a conscious decision by the constitution makers that given our diversity of our populace, the only solution is democracy, sir, where one person has one vote, and only that can ensure adequate representation and addressing each group's or each individual's concerns, sir. So I believe while it sounds very promising to have a selection process. The qualities that are needed in a political leader or in a smart governing authority are not those that can be qualified in numbers, sir. So I believe the people can make a conscious choice based on those human aspects of a person, those individual qualities and talents, which perhaps cannot be quantified, sir.
Imagine another scenario, a related question I'm asking you. IS post is a journalist post. Anybody studying history, geography, Sanskrit, Urdu comes into the IS. It's not very baffling that a man of Hindi literature, he becomes Secretary of Health and he issues instructions on Medicare for the entire country. Similarly, a student of geography, he takes over the technical education and starts giving instructions on how our technical education system should be. Is it not incorrect?
Sir, I believe to have a talented person in policy formulation requires ground experience, sir. And anyone reaching the post of any undersecretary or higher ups is somebody who's got plethora of experience on the field, sir. And it is that experience that translates to good policy regardless of their educational background, sir. I believe maybe the health secretary in the hypothetical scenario who has Hindi literature benefits from the idioms of Hindi, but he thinks in public service delivery terms because of experience, sir. And I believe there's no contradiction in this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mustafa, how are you feeling?
Very good, sir.
Let's continue the discussion. You're coming from Hyderabad and you mentioned Urdu as your mother tongue, right?
Yes, sir.
And you're in Delhi, another wonderful place for Urdu. Can you just compare for us the Urdu of Hyderabad with Urdu of Delhi?
Sir, the register of Urdu or the dialect spoken in Telangana, where the belong is called Dakkani, sir. And it has its own peculiarities, its own colloquialisms, pronunciations. It is found to be very colourful to listeners of other regions. Whereas the Urdu spoken in Delhi, sir, has greater influence of Awadhi and the Hindi registers, sir. So there's a difference in intonation as well, and also in the way sentences are formed, and in the street language itself, sir.
So you believe that Hyderabadi Urdu is more colourful. Can you just tell me what kind of colours are these?
Sir, I believe there's a tinge of informality and a very welcoming scent that is perceived by a listener in terms of creating an easy friendship in the easy go lingo that Hyderabad uses, sir.
Anyway, let's go a little serious. You are a practicing doctor in the sense that you have 2 masters as well as graduation in medicine and you've published certain papers also.
Yes, sir, I've been practicing surgery and also working for
Primarily your papers are on? Research papers?
Yes, in the field of surgery, sir. Published
Mainly
papers.
reporting things or more than that? Just the reporting of your medical cases or it's more than that?
No, sir, these are innovations in surgical techniques that I've done 2 papers on, sir. One of them was on the surgery for anal fissures, sir. We have done that surgery in local anesthesia and spinal anesthesia, sir, which is a distinct advantage for several reasons. The second paper was on making the incision in abdominal surgery, sir. Typically a scalpel is used, but we also have an instrument called the electrocautery, which uses the electric current to make the incision, sir. And I've compared both these methods and found them to be equally effective, sir.
I can clearly see the passion you're using while discussing these things. But do you believe the COVID time was really a bad time for anybody who's really serious about medical publications and medical inquiry? The way almost everybody was claiming to have either a cure or some kind of effective medicine or something to prevent the COVID, purely in terms of medical publications and medical inquiry, do you believe that the damage done in the past 2 years is something which will take long to recover?
Sir, I would take a diametrically opposite position to that notion, sir, because COVID has caused a landmark shift in medical research publishing. Earlier, a lot of research, in fact, most of the top-rated journals were behind the paywall, sir. So a person like me had to subscribe paying a hefty fee. What COVID did was, the moment this became a public health emergency of international concern, all journals across the board made their papers free for all. So I was able to access the latest research across several journals up to date, sir, as and when I was going, and I could tailor my treatments to my patients. So I believe medical research has gained a lot because of COVID, sir.
If you stay again at the same the reporting and the academics of medical thing, do you believe that the Ayush, the entire Ayush family, they suffer primarily because they don't have a supporting ecosystem in terms of medical sciences reporting as well as academics? There are no ways of actually peer-reviewed or other papers getting published and getting the acceptance from the medical fraternity. And, they may have merit in their treatments or reporting sometime, but since there is no ecosystem, therefore we'll keep suffering. Is that true?
Sir, I believe there is a vibrant research output also from Ayush in the past decade or so, sir, in terms of randomized controlled trials being published from institutes that are into Ayush, sir. At the same time, sir, because I know the concerns of the medical community of modern medicine, of allopathic medicine as it is called, I believe my opinion is there's medicine that works, there's medicine that doesn't, sir. And if I were to take the example of the very first drug to treat hypertension that came from Sarpaganda, which is an Ayurvedic drug, the most important drug to treat malaria today, Artemether, comes from Chinese traditional medicine, sir. So I believe there's a lot of scope for this kind of research to develop further, which it already is undergoing, sir.
Okay, let's move to your home state, Telangana. Do you believe that the formation of Telangana state, obviously it's a historical fact that it is created, but Hyderabad, which was nurtured and kind of made by Andhra Pradesh has a lot of resources, both human resources and obviously the monetary resources went into it. Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh got a raw deal in this whole thing, don't you think so? There must be a little Telugu in you state.
There is very much a part of Telugu in me because Telangana is a Telugu state, sir. So the question of Hyderabad, no doubt it was the crown jewel of first of all Andhra Pradesh, sir, which is why the Reorganization Act provided for a common capital for 10 years. Andhra Pradesh has taken the decision to have its own capital sooner than that, but Hyderabad was a sole point in division, sir. But if I trace it historically, sir, there was grievance from Telangana localites as well. There are a lot of political, economic and social positions in Hyderabad were taken by rich people from the coastal Andhra side, sir. So earlier in the 1950s and 60s, there were mulki rules where reservation or 12-year domicile was necessary for availing government jobs, sir. But this rule was done away with, which favored people migrating into Hyderabad, sir. So I believe there was a valid resentment by the locals because they couldn't get jobs and set up businesses, or also in the Telugu film industry have their own footprint to the extent that they would want in their own place, sir. So the bifurcation on the whole in 7 years has been a win-win for both states, sir.
Okay. Mustafa, what is the status of the census that was supposed to happen? What exactly is the current status?
I'm not very clear exactly when, sir, but one of these months the enumeration phase was supposed to start, sir.
Whose responsibility is the census as far as our country is concerned?
So in our constitutional scheme, it is the Registrar General of Census of India under the central government. Who
do we have a constitutional backing to census? Is it a executive exercise, legislative exercise? What is it?
So we have a Census Act of 1948, sir. So it is a legislative aspect, sir. There is also constitutional backing to the census, sir, in the context of SC/ST enumeration, sir, and having data backing reservations, sir, in Article 340s and related.
That brings me to the actual question I was waiting for. We've been having this SC/ST census since so long. It never created any problem. Then why now having a caste census so that the enumeration of OBCs can be done? It's such a touchy affair for the government of the day.
So there are both historical and current reasons for it being a touchy affair, sir. Primarily is of course the political angle where any caste enumeration changes the equations that political parties have to cater to, sir. But what I find more important is that when the census itself can have columns for SC and ST, it can also have a column for OBC. The current problem is the SC/ST exercise, which was supposed to tackle this very aspect, resulted in I believe around 46 lakh castes because of spelling variations or geographic diversity, sir. So that has left a dilemma in the minds of the executive that will such an exercise done again not lead to similar pitfalls, sir. So I believe the government is taking a very careful stance on this, and while the merits of the exercise are not in question, it is the execution that becomes tricky, sir.
How such a committee was able to do this thing as far as minorities are concerned? Where they got data from?
Sir, from what I can recall, sir, such a committee visited all states in the country and got data from state governments, sir.
Which effectively means that state governments do have data. That's a claim no state government have made so far. In fact, states like Bihar have pitched for caste census.
Sir, I believe the crux here lies in the fact that census is included in the union list, sir, which doesn't allow states the room to conduct it on their own, sir.
Fine, thank you.
When did you complete your MBBS?
In 2016, ma'am.
2016. And since you have been working and be in the field, do you feel there are any lacunas in the curriculum which is existing for MBBS graduate students? Any
Yes,
lacuna areas? Yeah.
When I studied, we were following a very hierarchical structure, which is not in tune with what most other countries follow, ma'am, which is the PBL framework of problem-based learning. At the same time, ma'am, my youngest sibling, when he joined about 3 years ago, the National Medical Commission came up with what is called the competency-based curriculum, which brings into effect the very changes that I missed in my education, ma'am. That is the focus on ethics, on communication, on the statistics. So these are areas I believe
They have been included.
right.
Okay. Recently, some new recommendations were suggested. Are you aware of that?
Ma'am, on the medical curriculum front, I'm not particularly able to recall anything, but of late there have been calls for having the Charaka Shapat instead of the Hippocratic Oath, ma'am.
So there were some other suggestions in the same recommendations as well, which included, one of them was including integrative medicine into the curriculum. So what are your views about it?
Ma'am, what I realized when I was doing my internship after 4.5 years of a more theoretical bent of mine, I realized that there is a difference between what we read in the classes and what we see in the hospital when we deal with patients, ma'am. And an integrated curriculum can bridge this gap, not in just this manner, but also in the fact that social aspects of health. When we speak to a patient from different backgrounds, how do we address their concerns? How do we gain their trust?
No. I'm asking something else. Integrative medicine. What do you understand by this concept?
There are 2 or 3 different strands that come to my mind, ma'am.
They're not 2 or 3 different. It's a very specific term.
I'm not very sure of the exact meaning, ma'am.
Okay. It's like integrating of all the forms of medicine, like Ayurveda, Unani, which are prevalent in India, kind of bringing them together. So do you support the idea?
Yes, ma'am. That reminds me of the fact that it was suggested to include Ayush as an optional subject for medical undergraduates. And ma'am, I personally feel I would have benefited with that. So I believe it's a good idea, ma'am.
Do you prescribe anything, or when you're interacting with your patients, do you include any of this streams in your prescription or discussion?
Ma'am, even if I don't, it is the patients who bring it up often, ma'am. In terms of, if I use colloquial terms, garam khana, thanda khana, which is a concept in Unani medicine that patients often ask me, should I eat this or shouldn't I eat that? So in a way, I have to tackle with these questions. And if I have the requisite theoretical background, I'll be able to better address their concerns, ma'am.
Okay. So you have been researching in the field of surgery, as you mentioned. I feel the cost is a major factor which limits the use or the reach of surgeries to normal patients of India. Do you agree with it?
Yes, ma'am, there is some truth to that claim. But what I would be more interested in is to break down the costs and see which areas are actually drawing out more of the expenses, ma'am. It is not the surgeon's fee. I would lay that out first, ma'am. It is the allied hospital costs of hospital stay, of drugs, of equipment, and of hospital maintenance that drive up the bills, ma'am. And this makes it unaffordable for the lower socioeconomic status to afford tertiary care in good private hospitals, ma'am. But then government hospitals where I worked provide the same services for free, and the surgical results in government hospitals are no less inferior.
So here comes the area of regulation of the private hospitals. Who regulates them?
Ma'am, it is now the National Medical Commission under which...
National Medical Commission?
Formerly the MCI, ma'am, now it's the National Medical Commission.
What's its mandate?
It has a very bad mandate catering from both medical education to clinical practice itself, ma'am.
Okay, but how are the pricing regulated? I don't think National Medical Commission has anything to do with the pricing.
On the pricing front, ma'am, NITI Aayog had come up with a model Clinical Establishment Act, which a few states tried to implement, particularly Maharashtra, ma'am. What this did was create a range or slab rates for several surgeries, so that even the private sector has room for making its own adjustments. At the same time, people don't feel they're fleeced, ma'am. So I believe a Clinical Establishment Act is a way forward at the state level to cater to their needs, ma'am.
Okay, and you were a COVID warrior during the pandemic?
Yes, ma'am.
So can you elaborate the 5 lacuna areas which were most glaring in the field of health sector in general, not only medicine but sector as a whole?
In the health sector as a whole, ma'am, what COVID, the lacuna it showed India, the very first one I would point out is our inverted set of priorities, ma'am. While about 50% of the disease burden is in primary care, a lot of funding goes to tertiary care, ma'am. So that is point number
That was one.
Yes, ma'am. Secondly, there was a shortage of not just doctors but also allied healthcare staff, which was ignored. Patient care workers, nurses, operation theatre technicians. These are people that we often
Trained professionals.
Yes, ma'am.
And third?
Paramedics. Thirdly, ma'am, rural penetration of our services, ma'am. The best of our healthcare services are concentrated in urban and semi-urban areas. So I believe the rural areas were underserved compared to their needs, ma'am.
Okay, fourth?
Ma'am, fourthly, our ability to manufacture our own drugs from the raw material itself. We were so dependent on a neighboring country for a lot of our active pharmaceutical ingredients, ma'am.
Neighboring country.
China in particular, ma'am.
Okay.
And lastly, ma'am, what I find close to my heart is the kind of funding we have for research and development, which is, I believe, just 0.65%, whereas other developed countries spends about 3 or 4%, ma'am.
Okay. And what do you think is the health insurance penetration percentage of Indian population?
Ma'am, I'm not exactly aware of the percentage, ma'am, but it is in low double digits, ma'am.
Low double digits. I don't think that's the case. Ayushman Bharat scheme, how much of population it covers?
It covers about 80 crore, two-thirds of the population, ma'am.
No, that's also not correct. But no problem. Can you tell me one more last thing? How do we define maternal death?
Ma'am, any death occurring from the onset of a viable pregnancy to the onset to the postpartum period is a maternal death, ma'am.
Postpartum period. How far?
7 days postpartum.
Only.
Perinatal maternal mortality is still 7 days, ma'am. Otherwise, maternal mortality body is 42 days, ma'am.
Okay. So what are the three main reasons, top contributors to the maternal death?
High risk pregnancies, ma'am. Is a broad term that covers a lot of contributing factors like anemia, early pregnancies, younger age groups, ma'am. Secondly, ma'am, lack of access to healthcare in the rural areas, ma'am.
Okay.
Thirdly, I would rate.
You would rate. I'm asking what are the three contributors to it?
I'm reporting from my personal experience, ma'am. On a broad level, it is maternal factors, fetal factors, and social factors, ma'am.
Postpartum hemorrhage.
It's the number one cause of maternal mortality, ma'am.
Okay. And then second would be?
Procreal sepsis, ma'am, would be one among the top 5, at least for sure.
Okay. And what about eclampsia and preeclampsia?
These are risk factors for maternal mortality, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Mustafa? So you have been COVID warrior. You must have known that during pandemic, there were too many drugs being prescribed by doctors themselves, which later came into controversy. Like ivermectin was being prescribed, and it's essentially a veterinary drug. Mostly it's used on animals. And then there was this case of hydrochloroquine, which was being taken by doctors themselves as preventive measure for some time. And then it was taken off the list. And it being in combination sometimes with AZI. So what exactly was happening? I mean, did doctors forget the whole pharma? What was happening?
Ma'am, COVID was a completely new disease. So even the medical community was finding its way in uncharted territories, ma'am. And there is trial and error involved in finding the appropriate treatments, ma'am. Because for a novel disease, we cannot have a novel drug. We have to see what current drugs work.
But then, as doctors, we also need to see that if we are giving any combination of drugs which can have adverse drug reactions, and when doctors themselves started prescribing certain drugs, people were going to the chemists and asking for those very drugs, even without the prescription. Don't you think doctors had some responsibility in this regard? The line of treatment they were issuing?
Ma'am, I believe the problem is twofold, ma'am. At a higher level, the standard setting bodies also differed in the treatment itself. WHO had a different list of recommended drugs. ICMR had chloroquine on its list, which the WHO did not have, for instance, ma'am. So at least in the first couple of months, we were trying to find out the best treatment combination through trial and error and clinical research, ma'am. The second problem is evidence-based medicine, which is the current medical era we are in, has not penetrated enough in terms of the practice that doctors follow in their clinical domains, ma'am. By and large, I believe most doctors whom I converse with try to stay updated with the recommendations, but over time some stagnation does set in, and which is why we have a concept of CMEs or continuing medical education for even established doctors, ma'am.
Okay, you have been interested in climate change, as I can see from your graph. So recently, climate change issue was taken up to UNSC, the Security Council of United Nations. Despite having a UNFCCC, which is the go-to body for such talks, why did this topic was being discussed in Security Council, where only a handful of countries have superior powers, and they being the biggest polluters, they were deciding on matters of climate change?
Ma'am, in fact, India itself opposed the involvement of climate change on the UN Security Council's agenda for this very reason. That there's a dedicated body to deal with it. To club it with other important aspects dilutes both these domains, security and climate change, ma'am. I believe certain countries who stand to benefit economically through the needs for climate change and the new investments and industrial innovations and technology transfers, they stand to benefit by raising this issue at all possible for us. So I believe it was in their interest that they did it, ma'am.
We just had our COP26 at Glasgow. Can you tell me some of the pledges that were being taken there?
Ma'am, India committed to punch up with its 5 goals that it would want to reach by 2030 and by 2070, ma'am. Carbon neutrality by 2070, reducing or sucking up 1 billion tons of carbon stock by 2030, increasing our non-fossil.
What were the 4 main pledges that were taken unanimously?
One was for phasing down of coal, ma'am. It was later corrected to phasing down of coal. There was a global methane pledge, ma'am. It was taken by a lot of countries. The One World, One Sun, One Grid initiative was also an important initiative, ma'am. And then individual countries revised their nationally determined contributions, ma'am.
We recently had this new criminal procedure code bill in Parliament, and there was a lot of furor over it. As doctor, can you tell me, is this bill good in spirit when it comes to the biological data, storing of that part of data, even for prisoners, even for criminals? Is it in good sense, in good spirit?
There are 2 ways to see this problem, ma'am. From a purely medical or scientific perspective, having biological data adds another punch to security apparatus, ma'am. It gives greater certainty in tracking and in identifying criminals, ma'am. On the other hand, the clause on preventive detainees also having their biological samples collected, I believe, encroaches on the right to privacy under Article 21, ma'am. So these are 2 broad concerns that have to be balanced by the
So even you have your reservations with respect to the bill?
Yes, ma'am. It requires a strong pre-legislative and legislative impact assessment, ma'am, for a healthy functioning bill, ma'am.
Okay, my last question to you, this one is just out of curiosity. Why coats are white while drapes and skirts are green?
Ma'am, the reason why coats are white, in fact, they were beige color in the 19th century. They slowly became white because white symbolized purity, truthfulness, and it conveyed a psychological sense of purity to the patient, ma'am. Whereas for surgical drapes, the color contrast becomes very important, ma'am. When we operate, blood spills over, and the contrast, it's a complementary color. Green or blue is complementary to red, so that does not distort your visual field much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, doctor. Do we have provision related to preventive detention mentioned in Indian Constitution?
Sir, Article 22 speaks of the rights for a preventive detention, sir.
Excuse me, does it deal with rights or it actually provides for preventive detention as well?
Ma'am, the reason why coats are white, in fact, they were having their, ma'am, it was taken in a lot of countries. One was for phasing down of coal, ma'am. It was later corrected to phasing down of coal. There was a global methane pledge, ma'am. It was taken by a lot of countries. The One World, One Sun, One Grid initiative was also, and climate change, ma'am. I believe certain countries. Ma'am, in fact, India itself opposed the involvement of climate change on the UN Security Council's agenda for this very reason. That there's a dedicated body to deal with it. To club it with other important aspects dilutes both these domains, security and climate change, ma'am. I believe certain countries who stand to benefit economically through the needs for climate change and the new investments and the industrial innovations and technology transfers, they stand to benefit by raising this issue at all possible for us. So I believe it was in their interest that they did it, ma'am.
We just had our COP26 at Glasgow. Can you tell me some of the pledges that were being taken there?
Ma'am, India committed to punch on with its 5 goals that it would want to reach by 2030 and by 2070, ma'am. Carbon neutrality by 2070, reducing or sucking up 1 billion tons of carbon stock by 2030, increasing our non-fossil
What were the
fuel.
4 main pledges that were taken unanimously?
One was for phasing down of coal, ma'am. It was later corrected to phasing down of coal. There was a global methane pledge, ma'am. It was taken by a lot of countries. The One World, One Sun, One Grid initiative was also an important initiative, ma'am. And then individual countries revised their nationally determined contributions, ma'am.
We recently had this new criminal procedure code bill in Parliament, and there was a lot of furor over it. As doctor, can you tell me, is this bill good in spirit when it comes to the biological data storing of that part of data, even for prisoners, even for criminals? Is it in good sense, in good spirit?
There are 2 ways to see this problem, ma'am. From a purely medical or scientific perspective, having biological data adds another punch to security apparatus, ma'am. It gives greater certainty in tracking and in identifying criminals, ma'am. On the other hand, the clause on preventive detainees also having their biological samples collected, I believe, encroaches on the right to privacy under Article 21, ma'am. So these are 2 broad concerns that have to be balanced by the
So
legislative
even
body.
you have your reservations with respect to the bill?
Yes, ma'am. It requires a strong pre-legislative and legislative impact assessment, ma'am, for a healthy functioning bill, ma'am.
Okay, my last question to you, this one is just out of curiosity. Why coats are white while drapes and skirts are green?
Ma'am, the reason why coats are white, in fact, they were beige color in the 19th century. They slowly became white because white symbolized purity, truthfulness, and it conveyed a psychological sense of purity to the patient, ma'am. Whereas for surgical drapes, the color contrast becomes very important, ma'am. When we operate, blood spills over, and the contrast, it's a complementary color. Green or blue is complementary to red, so that does not distort your visual field much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, doctor. Do we have provision related to preventive detention mentioned in Indian Constitution?
Sir, Article 22 speaks of the rights for a preventive detention, sir.
Excuse me, does it deal with rights or it actually provides for preventive detention as well? It does specify a timeline, right, within which the advisory board will have to be constituted.
Yes, sir.
Now my question is, Article 22, under which part of the Constitution it is mentioned?
This is under Part 3, sir.
Excellent. What in the world is a provision related to preventive detention doing in a chapter which is so-called holy grail of our Constitution, which is Part 3? Don't you think it is antithetical?
Sir, this concern has been raised for a long time, sir. And I believe the reason why this is so is we have adapted a lot of the provisions from the Government of India Act 1935, sir. So I believe it is a legacy that it remains.
Have provision related to preventive detention, but for God's sake, why under Part 3? And that too, why under Article 22? Have it outside the realm of Part 3. Nobody's stopping you, but you're actually constitutionally mandating preventive detention under the most sacrosanct part of our Constitution, which is, if I have to put it mildly, baffling. Anyways, let's say there's a patient, Dr. Saab. He comes to you, he says, Bhai Saab, my HB1AC is 11.5. My fasting sugar is 200. My non-fasting sugar, which I will actually measure 2 hours after consuming a meal, is 240. Would you actually recommend metmorphin to him?
Sir, I would like to first assess his medical history, sir. Has he already been taking medication?
No, he's not taking any medicine.
Sir, as a new patient with these values, I would start him on metformin.
Just hang in there. Metmorphin, are you sure? Because metmorphin is renally cleared. And once when you have diabetes for God knows X number of days, the first organ which perhaps takes a lot of hit is kidneys. Now comes the next question. Aren't you astounded with the fact that most of the renal, or rather most of the diabetic medicines are renally cleared, whereas there are tons of antibiotics which are not renally cleared? So you're basically feeding medicines in order to ensure that he is in the operation table possibly 2 to 3 years.
Sir, I beg to differ here, sir. Because that would be a very uncharitable reading of the situation.
Correct.
Antibiotics were discovered and they are still being researched upon since
Let's focus on metmorphin and it's also all its sister medicines being renally cleared. You're talking of a patient who's diabetic and whose kidneys are failing as I talk.
Sir, as I recall, there are about 10 or 12 different classes of drugs that treat diabetes, sir. Of these, only about half or so are renally cleared, sir.
Right.
Not all of them, sir. And metformin is perhaps one of the most important drugs to treat diabetes, sir. I was about to mention the fact that for this patient, I would order a diabetic profile, which includes renal function test, which gives me an assessment of how far his kidneys have been affected, sir.
Would you also order a GFR test to be done as well?
Yes, sir.
Naturally.
Yes, sir.
Is there a correlation between GFR, let's say failing or falling GFR and creatinine?
Yes, sir.
There is. So lower your GFR for sure. Medically, you can say that you will definitely have a higher creatinine in your body.
There could be very rare exceptions, sir, but probably that is the principle, sir.
That is the principle. Lower the GFR, higher the creatinine. All right. Going further, it's very intriguing to me that heart can develop cancer in the form of a tumor, but it looks like that it's a bulletproof organ when it comes to tuberculosis. Why is it so?
The incidence of cancers in the heart is very less, sir.
Arithmetically negligible. I'm aware of that. Thank you. But about tuberculosis?
The tuberculosis bacilli, they lodge in the apex of the lung where there is both ventilation
Why are
and
we presuming that tuberculosis only has to do with pulmonary? I mean, I fail to understand that.
So I was about to extend that argument. The biggest burden of tuberculosis is pulmonary tuberculosis, sir. There are extra pulmonary tuberculosis as well. It affects the brain as well, and liver and all other organs in the body, sir. On the question of why it doesn't affect the heart, sir, I don't know the exact reasons for it, but
Then I stop there because rest, it's all jargons, right? But nonetheless, a scary read. I was actually going through some articles day before yesterday in the context of Shane Warne's death, right? A famous cricketer, leg spinner. They say that sleep apnea, if it's prolonged, can almost certainly cause heart attack. Do you agree with that hypothesis?
yes, sir.
And why do you agree with that hypothesis?
So what sleep apnea does, it creates an oxygen hunger in the body, correct? Because of cessation of the breathing process, the body is starved of oxygen, sir. And the very first organ to be affected because of that is the heart, because it drains about 20% of the body's oxygen supply, sir.
Right.
So there's a direct correlation between prolonged sleep apnea periods and myocardial infarction, sir.
All right, doctor. What is the difference between headline inflation and core inflation? And if you were to be an RBI governor, which figures would you first focus on?
So core inflation is the inflation rate of the basket of goods minus fuel and food, sir, which see a more frequent fluctuation, sir. Headline inflation is the overall inflation in the economy, sir.
All right. So extending that logic, why is it that RBI is focused more on, let's say, consumer price index vis-a-vis wholesale price index?
So the consumer price index is what affects the public directly, sir. The wholesale price index does not reflect what the masses face in the markets daily, sir. So that is the reason we have shifted to consumer price index about a decade ago, sir.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mustafa, one last question before we let you go. Imagine a situation where you are working as a district magistrate of a district. You are holding a meeting with your subordinate officer, in which the medical officer of the district, head of the medical medicine, is also there. He happens to be there. So suddenly you find one of your subordinate officers falling sick. Probably as because you are a doctor, you could sense that the fellow has suffered a heart attack. Then what will be your reaction as a district magistrate of a district?
So me becoming a DM does not mean me unbecoming a doctor. So my medical instincts will kick in immediately, sir. And the first aid that I've learned to check the circulation, airway, breathing, disability, I'll get down to my medical basics and try to see if the individual requires a CPR at the spot, sir.
But don't forget your CMO is also there. Chief medical officer is also sitting in the meeting, who is supposed to be taking care of your health system. So will you jump into his shoes?
Sir, CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, is a process that requires more than one individual, sir. So I believe both the CMO and a farmer and a doctor.
You will go by the advice of the CMO, or you will have your own opinion, because you are a superior authority there. CMO he cannot resist your advice or your dictat, so to say.
So the CMO being actively in the field, I'll give his view precedence over mine, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Your interview is over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon. Please take your seat. Thank you, sir. Mr. Ashutosh Kumar. Yes, sir. Ashutosh, you got your vaccine? Yes, sir. Both those? Yes, sir. Since board members are also vaccinated, I'll advise you to remove your mask then. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Comfortable? Absolutely, sir. Okay, so Ashutosh, to begin with, please introduce yourself to board. Sir, I'm Ashutosh Kumar. I am from Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. I have done my schooling from St. Fidelis College, Lucknow, and I have done my engineering in electrical engineering from IIT Kanpur. My interests are sun salutation, meditation, and reading self-improvement books. You completed your graduation in which year? Sir, 2017, sir. 17? Yes, sir. What are you doing since then? Sir, I've been preparing for the civil services examination, sir. You're an IIT Kanpur graduate? Yes. I can see you mentioned that you got a 9.9 CGPA in IIT Kanpur. Yes, sir. Which is phenomenal, right? Have you received that gold medal from IIT Kanpur? Yes, sir. The Academic Excellence Award? Yes, sir. And you're unemployed for 5 years? Sir, I think that this process of preparation for the civil services I had decided way back in IIT Kanpur. So for me, it's a method of pursuing my own dream and a goal that I fixed for myself, and it's more of a perseverance on my part to try and keep on achieving that goal as long as possible, sir. As long as possible? Meaning till the attempts are exhausted, sir. Do you realize that you are IIT gold medalist? Yes, sir. 9.9 CGPA electrical engineering? Yes, sir. Appearing with political science and not electrical engineering. The failure is written, on the very idea, the very planning of it. If IIT Kanpur cannot give confidence to its own gold medalists to appear in their own discipline, yes, which institution will? Sir, first regarding the failure, sir, I think that we have to learn from the failures, and they are there to teach us lessons and learn from them. These are mediocres, man. You're not mediocre. I trust your institution. You do not trust your own institution. Sir, absolutely, I trust my institution, and my decision to opt for the political science and international relation, it was more back then at 2017, like I had certain friends and I had guidance available from the seniors, so I had decided back then itself, and also because this option would help me in other GS papers, that is why I chose for it, sir. That is again a mediocre reasoning. You've taken 5 years, which effectively means the reasoning is not working. But anyways, since already you're here, so to some extent it's working. Tell me, electrical engineering, obviously you're a gold medalist, so who else will tell me? Tell me, we used to have DC traction. Yes, sir. And of late, there are people who believe that the AC is better. Yes, sir. Why this change of mind in engineers' perspective? Sir, I think that regarding the DC traction, sir, its starting thought issues are there. In the case of the DC, the second issue comes in is the power supply. The most of the power supply that we have is AC, sir. So the main issue that comes in is that the starting torque in the case of the DC motors becomes a bit low, and so that issue can be resolved if we use the induction motors that are the AC driven motors. That is why I think, in my opinion, this shift is coming, sir. Tell me, if we stay at the electrical engineering aspect, yes, sir, can you mention 3 things vis-a-vis electrical GT, generation, transmission, distribution things, sir, that are affected by politics? Okay, sir. So first, in the case of the power generation, sir, there have been issues where the power purchase agreements have been cancelled by the government, and this has been because of there were the commitments made by the one government, and the another government, when it comes in the power, it does not want to honor those agreements, which it thinks are not according to what it committed in the public. The second issue, in the case of the distribution sector, it comes in that the subsidies in the electricity that are provided, the agriculture, especially for the agriculture sector, they are primarily distorting this kind of having negative impact on environment as well as the food production and other dimension, but still they cannot be done away with because a large voter base lies with the farmers.
So the third issue regarding this, I think maybe in the transmission sector, sir, it's a kind of competition. That is, the thermal power plants, they want the transmission sector that they want their own plant load factors to rise, and for that to rise, they must be given more access to the to the transmission networks. On the other hand, the renewable energy generators, they want that they should be given the priority in the terms of green corridor building, linking it with the grid, etc. So this issue kind of becomes a bit political, like if whatever political party, what kind of support it has and what its inclinations and ideology are, it can decide between the thermal or the renewable energy.
I don't know why I have a feeling that you have taken the politics part only in a negative sense, as if it's a bad thing. You're a PSIL student.
Yes, sir.
Don't you find the politics influencing positively to the GTD issues ever?
So there can be certain positive aspects, like I should have mentioned it. Like in the first aspect, if they look at the political positive dimension of the politics, a greater thrust towards enhancing the energy security for the people, and this in turn is leading us to increase our installed capacity in the terms of the electricity generation. Apart from that, schemes like Saubhagya scheme that provide the free connection to the BPL and to the people who still do not have the electricity connection. These are leading to the greater access to the electricity to the people, and in that sense, it is improving the the distribution of electricity. And on the renewable side, the thrust for the renewable energy, it is also enhancing the clean power supply as well.
Anyways, thank you, sir. You're from Lucknow.
Yes, sir.
City famous for its cuisines.
Yes, sir.
Can you cook?
No, sir.
You would like to learn cooking?
Definitely, sir. I would like to try sometimes.
You like reading self-improvement books?
Yes, sir.
Which is your favorite author?
Sir, I have read If You Think You Can by T.J. Washington, sir.
Okay.
And apart from that, other books that I like is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and Attitude is Everything by Jeff Keller.
Which is the favorite one?
Sir, my favorite one, it is If You Think You Can, sir.
So what are the 3 takeaways from that book?
So the first one is regarding the goal setting. The goal setting should be smart, that is, they should be very specific and very measurable goals. The goals that are time-oriented, that is, they should be according to the time. The second is the power of decision-making. That is, as General George Patton of the USA, he had remarked that a good plan implemented today, it is better than a best plan that is not implemented ever, may be implemented after a month. And the third one is the power of auto-suggestions. That is, if we continuously keep on giving the positive thoughts and the self-motivating thoughts, then it helps in programming our subconscious mind and it leads us to the success in our life.
Good. Suppose you have to write a book on self-development.
Yes, sir.
Which area will you choose?
Sir, I would like to work on the power of thoughts, sir.
Power of thoughts.
Yes, good.
Tell us something about comprehensive national power.
Sir, the comprehensive national power refers to the sum total of the economic capacity of a nation, like what is the kind of GDP production. It refers to the defense power of the nation. Apart from that, the kind of resources the nation possesses, what is its standing in the global affairs, and also the soft power, sir.
Okay. In Indian context, maritime domains are of great importance.
Yes, sir.
In strategic neighborhood policy.
Yes, sir.
What is your take on this, and what are the challenges as far as India is concerned?
Sir, the maritime neighborhood has become important. Is important for us. This is because around 80% of our energy supplies, primarily the oil supplies, they are imported by the maritime sea routes. Apart from that, the other issues like maritime terrorism, etc., are rising, like we could see in the 26/11 attacks on the Mumbai. Apart from that, the significance of the maritime domain is rising because of the rising Chinese maritime assertiveness in the Indian Ocean. So, because of these challenges, these are the challenges that India is facing, and it is because of this the maritime domain becomes important for us.
Okay. Tell us something about what are the challenges in BIMSTEC.
Sir, the first is the India's image of a big brother nation, and this many of the BIMSTEC nation, they do not want, they kind of not like this kind of an image. The second one is that many BIMSTEC nations want the China to be a part of it as well, and India does not want the BIMSTEC to be a China-centric organization. The third challenge in the BIMSTEC lies in improving the connectivity among the nations, because these are primarily the nations like Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar, Thailand, etc. The pace of connectivity is not so strong as it should be.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You said you're interested in sun salutations.
Yes, ma'am.
Why specifically sun salutations and not yoga in general?
Ma'am, I think that first I have done many asanas for the yoga, and yoga was a part of a compulsory physical activity at IIT Kanpur as well. But of late I have started preferring the sun salutation, because first it is a set of 12 asanas which I think provide a very comprehensive size for the body, and they help in improving the immunity, and so that is I have
So they do provide that, but that doesn't mean that other asanas are redundant and do you think that other asanas are redundant in that case?
no, ma'am, definitely not. All the asanas have their own kind of a benefit, and in my case I think that the Surya Namaskar for my body, it is comfortable, it provides me a good kind of an exercise. That is why I prefer the Surya Namaskar.
Only?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you tell me a little about how much is the internet penetration of Indian population roughly? If you have a figure or idea about this?
Ma'am, I think that I don't know the exact. I was reading the internet penetration. I was reading about the internet penetration was around 27 or 28%.
Okay.
Ma'am, I think this report was way back in the 2017. I had read a few days back in the newspaper.
So even in 2017, I think it's a very low figure. With geo coming, we observe in the society, everybody has a smartphone.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I think that this is more true in the urban areas. However, in the rural areas,
Still people don't have
yes,
it.
ma'am, still they do not.
Have you visited any rural area recently or in past couple of years?
Ma'am, in past I think 1 or twice I visited my paternal village, but not very much for a long time.
Okay. So in context of energy security, When we talk about waste to energy, what kind of waste are we trying to get energy from?
Ma'am, the first is the biomass related waste, and if the biomass related waste it is dried off and the moisture component is removed, then we can use it in the thermal power plants as well. Again, like in a certain proportion, 5% to 10%. Apart from that, ma'am, the waste to energy plants could also involve like the waste, the municipal garbage, etc. that keeps on coming up. And if it can be suitably treated, then I think that it can also be used for the waste to energy plants.
Okay. Some of the processes involved in this conversion, can you recall?
Ma'am, one of them is pyrolysis, that is heating at a high temperature, which in turn leads to its conversion into the gases like carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide, etc. And then they can be burnt, and the energy produced from it can be used to convert it into convert the water into the steam, which can be used to drive the turbines and generate electricity.
Okay. Recently, government has been discussing Dam Safety Act. Can you tell me some of its provisions?
Ma'am, like the provisions that I'm able to recall is the two institutional structures that have been proposed. One of them is the National Dam Safety Authority, that will be responsible for laying down the policies and the guidelines for the dam safety. Second, there is one more committee, like National Committee on the Dam Safety. I'm not able to recall its exact name, and that will be responsible for the implementation and looking after the dams and whether those policies and guidelines are being implemented.
Okay. Why the specific need to regulate dam safety? What were the earlier provisions under which this regulation could be done according to you?
Ma'am, earlier provisions I'm not able to recall right now, but I think the specific need of the dam safety arises from the fact that India has the third largest number of the dams, and mainly the large dams. And these kind of the dams, many of them are more than 100 years old, and so a proper institutional structure is required so that they do not lead to any catastrophic event in the future.
Okay. You must have come across UN Human Rights Charter.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And if we compare the UN Human Rights Charter and the fundamental freedoms given in India,
Yes, ma'am.
can you tell me some of the rights which feature there and not here, and any difference you can make out between the two?
Ma'am, I've read about it only in general. Exact precise difference I'm not able to recall, ma'am.
Okay. Are you aware of UN laws?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So how do we define? What are the different? How do we define the different sovereignty, territorial waters,
Yes, ma'am.
contiguous zone, EEZs? Can you tell me quickly what are the parameters?
Ma'am, from the baseline up till the 10 nautical miles, I think it is the territorial waters, and then up till the 24 nautical miles, it is the I think contiguous zone, and from up till the from the territorial waters up till the 220 nautical miles from the this baseline, it is the exclusive economic zone, ma'am.
Are you sure about these figures?
Yes, ma'am. As far as I'm able to recall, ma'am.
Okay. What about the depth?
Ma'am, depth aspect I'm not aware of.
You're not aware. My last question: doctrine of hot pursuit.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you come across it?
Yes, ma'am. In the case of the Uri attack, this kind of concept was introduced.
What do you study this in PSIR?
Ma'am, I've read about it in general. Not
Okay.
specifically.
What does it mean actually?
Ma'am, it means that if any case the terrorists they are pursued beyond the national boundaries, and this kind of an action this is specifically targeted against the terrorist action and the terrorist launchpad, and not against any nation's sovereignty or integrity.
Does it involve terrorists?
Ma'am, I read hot pursuit in the context of the terrorist kind of.
Achha, okay. One last question then. Can you define terrorism? Define and differentiate between terrorism, insurgency, and nationalism?
Ma'am, terrorism it involves the it involves those kind of acts of the terror that are motivated by the political, religious, or ideological purposes. Naxalism it is specifically kind of insurgency by the farmers and the tribals in India, and especially those who are inspired by the Leninist and the Marxist ideology. And insurgency it is a kind of armed rebellion against the state when the people are not satisfied.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Ashutosh. Yes. You have a CGP of 9.9. What was your BTech project?
Sir, it was regarding the patch antenna, and it was a monopole antenna, and what I had done in the project was the miniaturization of that antenna by introducing the Minkowski fractals in it. And so these kind of antennas, they are used in the wearable devices like the smartwatches, or these kind of antennas are also finding applications in pacemakers that are used in the hearts and other kind of Internet of Things devices.
Okay.
So,
Did you file patent for the same?
No, sir. Why? Sir, first there was not so much awareness about filing the patent regarding it. Like I was never told by my professor or advisor, so I never tried for it.
You applied for civil services since your IT days, right?
Sir, after my graduation, I did.
So suppose an IT graduate doesn't know about patents. How can we make India a global export hub?
Sir, I think definitely this kind of awareness needs to be introduced in the IIT system, and this structure I also found that it was lacking because many professors are also not aware of this. And in case in the lab in which I was working, I don't think many patents were being filed. So I think a kind of government outreach and the institutional structures within IITs need to be created so that more patents are encouraged.
What are the main factors behind the low patent filing in the country?
Sir, the first is as I pointed out, the low degree of awareness among the people. Second, the patent-related laws and the regulations, they are very cumbersome. As it was pointed out by the economic survey that it takes around 46 months to get a patent in India. However, it takes around only 20 months in the USA and the China. Apart from that, I think that patent-related issues, they do not receive adequate funding support like there is a CIPM institution, but more such kind of institution needs to come up.
Ashutosh, I'm very afraid, IT graduates are not aware of patents. Then how can we proceed with the technology development in the country?
Sir, definitely, I think we need to enhance the awareness regarding this. The government needs to set up institutions that handhold the graduates, and also professors should be incentivized. That if the
So can we say that your education was largely bookish with no practical knowledge?
Sir, I would not agree with that. There were a lot of practical labs, that laboratory experiments that we used to do in our graduation course, and apart from that, it also involved doing the project work as I pointed out. So I cannot say that it was largely bookish.
But you have no interest to file patents to develop something new, to boost India's economy, to boost exports, right?
Sir, my interest, like during the third and the fourth year, I had started gravitating towards the idea of preparing for the civil services examination. So I had started reading the basic books, so I had no inclination as of now.
You left all the BTech knowledge so that you can prepare for the civil services?
Sir, I had started doing the basic preparation for it, yes, sir.
What is the concept of Vishwaguru with regard to India?
Sir, the idea of the Vishwaguru states that the India has been a leading power since the times immemorial in providing the intellectual leadership to the world at large. We can see from the Bakshali manuscript that provided the idea regarding the numericals. Apart from that, we can see from the Aryabhat's work regarding the solar eclipse, the calculation of the value of pi, etc. We can see in the Ras Ratnakar.
In the present times, forget about the past. In the present times, what are the requirements for the country to become Vishwaguru?
So for becoming the Vishwaguru, I think there we need to start from the grassroots level. The first has to be by strengthening the education infrastructure in our country. This in turn will lead to the greater literacy rates in our country. Then secondly, as we reach towards the research institutions, there has to be a greater focus on filing the patents. There has to be a greater focus on promoting the grassroots level research.
Okay, fine. Last question. Like in the electrical engineering,
Yes, sir.
what new challenges are coming up for the engineers to make India competitive with respect to China?
Sir, I think that if you look in the terms of the electric vehicles, and if you look especially in the context of the lithium-ion batteries, since we all know that the lithium is a scarce resource, so there is a need to come up with alternative battery and the energy storage that can give thrust to the electric vehicles, which in turn will lead to the job creation and environmental sustainability. Recently, there was a news that the Reliance company is looking for the creation of the batteries with the sodium ion, because the sodium is abundant in the oceans, and there was a Scottish company that has certain patents regarding it. So these kind of challenges are coming up. Good technologies are needed in this regard.
Fine, thank you.
So Ashutosh,
Yes, sir.
what is the law which actually regulates the number of pages, the width of pages, the content? Can it so happen that today is Sunday, so why don't we publish 200 pages in this paper? People will read. Is there any law?
Sir, I'm not aware of the exact laws, but I think the Press Council of India would have its regulation, but this is just a guess. I'm not aware.
Just a guess, and the guess is very far off. No, absolutely no.
Okay, sir.
It has got nothing to do with Press Council of India. Hey, going further. Do you have a bank account?
Yes, sir.
I presume it will be a savings account.
Yes, sir.
Is it also right to presume that it's in a nationalized bank?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Whatever X amount of money which you have in your savings account,
Yes, sir.
in which part of the money aggregate will it fall under? Will it fall under M0, M1, M2, M3, M4?
Sir, the money in the bank account would fall under M3.
Would you say money in the bank account? I'm being specific here. It's not term deposits. I'm talking about savings
Deposit, yes, sir.
M3 you said?
Yes, sir. M3. And M1 as well, sir.
M1 as well. So which is more liquid amongst the two?
So the more liquid one would be the M1.
M1, okay. And which is considered as broad money?
So M3 is the product.
And why is that so?
Sir,
Why so broad about it?
Sir, it also includes the time deposits that they are in the banks.
Okay, excellent, Ashutosh. Please tell me, there is a confusion in terms of terminologies in your political science.
Yes, sir.
The argument is liberalism is actually neoliberalism, and neoliberalism is actually liberalism.
Okay, sir.
What sense do you make out of this?
Sir, with the first part of the statement that liberalism is actually the neoliberalism. So the idea is that the classical liberalism, as it was talked about, it was in the negative sense of the liberty. That is the freedom to the people, and it was not in the context of the positive liberty that talks about the welfare-oriented approach. And then, incidentally, the neoliberalism also has that same kind of the market fundamentalism, and wherein the lot of private sector.
Which one promotes state intervention? Which one says hands off?
Sir, the positive liberalism, it promotes the state intervention in the welfare state, and it evolved after the 1930 economic depression. And the classical liberalism and neoliberalism both talk about the night watchman state and a hands-off approach.
Absolutely. So if the FDI in insurance sector is, let's say, increased from 49% to 74%, then who will actually favor it? Whether liberals will be happy or neoliberals?
Sir, the neoliberals would be happy, sir.
And Ashutosh, please, try to make sense out of this. Why in the world do we read in newspapers 74% FDI? What is so magical? Why not 75? What is the 74? Why are they leaving out 26%?
Sir, I think this 26% is left out that certain, like in the case of FDI, if only 74% of FDI is allowed, then the 26% will have to be either owned by the Indian person or an Indian national.
Excellent. What is the consequence of that?
The consequence is that there would be some sort of an Indian ownership in whatever acts or whatever kind of development that company is involved in, and at least
Most of the majority discussions or decisions in companies that require 75%.
Yes, sir.
So if you're 74%, you're short of 1%.
1%. So at least the consent of the Indian stakeholder would be
Absolutely, Ashutosh. You come from Uttar Pradesh?
Yes, sir.
Have you heard of Gulabi Gang?
Sir, I've heard it in a general sense.
Wasn't there in the movie? I think there was a movie also made apparently. But anyways, let's say Uttar Pradesh, because of its territorial strength as well as in terms of population,
Yes, sir.
intends to divide it into 3 parts or 4 parts. What is the constitutional process for the same?
Sir, it would require an amendment, a law that has to be passed by the parliament under Article 3 of the
What will be
Constitution.
the role of state legislative assembly of Uttar Pradesh?
So the state legislative assembly, will have to send a resolution within a specified period of the time. It will have to pass this kind of a resolution, and then parliament can consider it.
Pass the resolution? Is it necessary for the state legislative assembly of Uttar Pradesh to pass it?
Sir, like this proposal
Or
would be
president can just seek reference?
Yes, sir. That is the term. The president will just send it for the reference of the state, and whether the state accepts it or not, the view of the state would be inconsequential.
So in that note, Ashutosh, would it not actually thwart federalism completely?
Sir, if Parliament decides to proceed this and against the opinion of the state government and state legislature, then definitely it would be against the spirit of the federalism. But then the Parliament would be having its own reasons for it, and it would have kept certain national interest in the mind.
And it's a debatable presumption anyways. Thank you. Okay, Ashutosh.
Yes, sir.
Ashutosh, if I look at the kind of hobbies and interests you have announced in your tab,
Yes, sir.
Be it Surya Namaskar or things like meditation, self-improvement books, it appears that you're more of an inward-looking individual, less of a social and outward-looking team player. Am I right in presuming that?
Sir, I think that hobbies are more that I've been pursuing in the last 5 years since I've been preparing for the civil services. But I don't think that I'm a completely inward-looking and not a team player. We used to have a lot of team projects at IIT Kanpur as well, and I used to actively participate.
Despite so many efforts by IIT Kanpur, you remain what you are. That's my fear. I hope I'm wrong, but tell me I'm wrong.
Sir, I think that being an introvert and being a team player are two different things. An introvert is a person who does not even want to interact with other people. That this fundamental quest is even not there to go out and interact. A team player is a person who works with everyone, tries to build sort of consensus, tries to motivate the team, and then act accordingly along with the team to achieve the desired goal. So I think that I possess those kind of the qualities that I want to interact with other people, and if I'm working in a team, then definitely I would like to motivate everyone and try to.
In your project, tell me 3 things in your life you've done which proves that you are more of a team player.
Sir, the first aspect that I would like to tell about is that I used to occasionally, like in my colony where I live, I used to occasionally try to organize the Holy Milan Samaros that used to be there. And like in the organization part, I used to mainly, during my childhood, I used to work with other children who were there in my colonies, and then we used to decide what kind of cultural program it would be, not obviously the organizing aspect. As of now, sir, I'm able to recall only this incident.
Fine, Ashutosh. Nice talking to you. Your interview is over. You can go now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Take a seat, Ashutosh.
Thank you, sir.
Ashutosh, your interview is on 10th of May,
Yes, sir.
right? And it is going to be your first attempt at the interview.
Yes, sir.
Tell me, you're happy with your performance, or I believe you're wearing the same suit and dress?
Yes, sir.
Can you just stand up? I'm sorry. Can you just stand up and...
Okay, sir.
No, you have a better fitted suit. I mean, the color and all is fine.
Okay, sir.
But it looks, I'm not saying that it is, but it looks like as if you borrowed from your elder brother.
Okay, sir.
Especially this shoulder thing.
Okay, sir.
Either get it fitted or get a new one. You still have time, plenty of time, right? Look at the video carefully why I'm saying so. Right now it appears as if ज़्यादा बड़े होने से क्या होता है, shoulder ऐसे नीचे टपके हुए लगते हैं, which is not a sign of a confident person, right? I'm just suggesting, but you want to take call, but it is looking like this, and it was in fact suggested by colleagues also. Okay, sir. Okay, you're happy with your performance, or there are areas you believe in to work?
Sir, I think that I should have worked regarding the IIT background. I should have prepared it even in a better way, sir.
See, there are a few things you can't do much about. I mean, obviously, as a student, you will strive to get good marks.
Yes, sir.
And good marks cannot be punished, right? But that's what was happening here. The idea was one to intimidate you, okay, to some extent, and also to see how do you react to it. And also, in a sense, obviously, it can be a genuine query there as well.
Yes.
I mean, you are a kind of a candidate who will be expected to be in academics or in engineering. Why are you coming here? But this is off-the-shelf question. I don't give much importance to these days because most of the candidates already prepared for it. So even for them, they ask it for the sake of asking it, but they know the candidate's already prepared for it, and the answer being delivered is a prepared answer. So don't worry about it. But yes, you need to have better defense than you were giving. This is one thing. Same applies to the patent thing. I mean, interact a bit, but it makes sense that you prepare that aspect also. Right? Coming to specifics, your entry is good. Sitting posture generally good. Voice level, verbal communication is wonderful actually. The flow is wonderful. Voice clarity is there, and speed sometimes appears a little faster at a few places, but it's not hampering the communication in general, right? So the voice clarity and the verbal communication definitely was very good. Eye contact was also good, right? So overall on the communication front, you're doing most things right. Coming to the content part, on most topics, most areas, it appears that you have prepared. There were a few areas where it appears that maybe a little brush up is required, right? And a slight suggestion that when you are kind of claiming to know certain thing, then you need to be very sure, especially if we are talking about the factual aspect, right? When you were discussing with the ma'am and I actually asked, are you sure? And I'm told that it was not the right. So again, you can be wrong. There's no problem in being wrong. But just if you believe the board member is insisting, then leave that window of you being wrong a bit, right? That will be a better way of saying it. Okay. Other things in general good. Holiday, maybe a little revision is required, but you have plenty of time. So in any case, you'll be revising. What else you'll do, right? so prepare a bit. Otherwise, on the communication front and on the attitude and all things are good. Okay. The last question, which we were getting into this discussion about you being inward looking, you handled it well. Again, it was an odd idea to corner you a bit, but you were able to handle it well. So it makes sense to just to think of a few things in your mind. You're ready with coming up with the better defense. Other things, overall good. Overall, your endeavor should be that you should not appear a very textbookish person. Okay, sir. Your personality should appear to be open, inviting personality, rather than somebody who is like giving 10 hours a day to books only. That should overall personality. That part is already tested. You have drawn benefits out of it. That's why you're here. Yes. So not leave it for a while. And just think for 30 minutes, it should appear that you're an open person. You like to interact and you're enjoying the conversation. Okay, right? All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Happy June.